when you're a new grad, you have to realize that, yes, you do have a graduation certificate. You only know a little bit compared to the whole big bit that you still don't know. As a new grad, you need to spend countless hours investing back into yourself to invest into your clients and your workplace. As a new grad, there's so many different areas. You know, you can obviously focus on all of your clinical skills with your clients, all the different types of disabilities and delays and disorders. And, you know, with speech therapy, there's stuttering, speech sounds, language, feeding, literacy, there's so many areas just in that. That would be the same with you with all the different conditions.
Yes.
So you've got your clinical skills, but then you also need to learn how to write a report, how to write progress notes and do them efficiently, like you're saying in the session, how to write NDIS letters, how to make a phone call. They are all a lot of skills that make up the majority of your job, and you need to take a lot of time to hone those skills.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was, again, coming back to the value of that is what is going to make an amazing speech pathologist, is if they have that clinical understanding. They also understand that other side of their role, which is all the paperwork. And everyone always goes, paperwork. If you're still at 10 years going, paperwork, you need to actually work on the personal development skill of managing time. What are you doing with yourself?
We are child development obsessed business besties and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzie Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackey, Australian speech pathologist.
And this is the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast. So today we are talking about which role is right for me. Do we recommend employees or contractors? And what are the ins and outs of these two arrangements? And a little bit about starting business and our recommendations around that.
And different workplaces.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I started, I finished uni and I worked in a private practice, and that was as an employee. I then, after 2 years, that I went to a government or New South Wales health job where I worked in their community health centre and the hospital. So 2 different settings. I was still an employee, but different award because you've got New South Wales Health Award.
Right.
And then generally in private practice, you follow the Fair Work Ombudsman Award.
Yes.
So that's award means money and wages and how you calculate that.
Yes.
And there are minimum wages that you need to be paid in Australia.
Yes. So very important to know those.
Yes. So that was still employee, but governed by a different award. When I was in my community health and hospital job, it was a temporary full-time position. So I was given the job for 12 months. And then every 12 months we renewed it or reviewed it because the person I was filling in for was on maternity leave.
Yeah, right.
So she technically still held the position. So I took a little bit of a risk when I went from the private practice, I was just employed permanently, to taking the role in the government sector. Yeah. But, I knew that risk when I took that. I was lucky enough that then she extended her maternity leave. So I ended up working there for 3 years. In the 3rd year, I had to go part-time because she came back. But that was always, I knew that would eventually happen. Once I then was doing part-time at the community health and hospital setting, I then went back into private practice, and I was then on a contractor model. Yeah. So that was the first time I encountered that contractor model. I was about 5 years in at this point.
So it's pretty early, really. Or maybe they were doing it more back in the day and now it's not as stable, so there's more employment arrangements.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that, I sort of only encountered that after 5 years.
Yeah.
And then basically when I went into the contracting position, it was 60-40.
Yeah.
So I took 60% for every client, and then the owner took 40%.
Yeah.
So I would go in, it was all under their business name. They were responsible for doing getting me, the clients. So I wasn't responsible for sourcing any of that. And then I would just do my clinical work.
Yeah.
I did have the component of doing the admin, like I started doing payments after sessions and doing invoices.
Did they not provide admin?
No, we were in a building that had other health professionals, so there was an admin there, but the admin was for the other health professionals. I don't know what the arrangement was.
Right.
I didn't really question it at the time.
Yeah.
So I started, taking payments, but that is really that was really good for me looking back at the time, because it sort of opened my eyes to things that need to happen with a client other than just your clinical work.
Good business skills.
It was a good little transfer. However, after 3 weeks of working in that contractor position, I handed in my notice because there was very little support as a contractor.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can talk about this, Lizzie, a bit more, but there was very little support, very little professional development. It was sort of all on me to do all my organization of files and notes. We started paper files.
Yeah.
Back then, I feel so old saying that, but it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
We started paper files. It was all on me, and I just thought, mate, I'm doing all of this. I could probably just earn it. Like, this was my very limited, simple thinking at the time. It's not my thinking now. Yeah. But I was just like, I'm doing everything. I may as well just take 100% of it rather than 60%. Yeah. I'll just start it my own. And so I gave notice after 3 weeks, but then I didn't finish that job for another 3 months. And while I was working, so I was actually doing the community health and hospital job 3 days a week. I would then go to this contracting position 2 days a week. And in between, when I wasn't seeing clients, because they weren't paying me when I wasn't seeing a client, I would start my own business. And that I still remember, like, registering my ABN in between two clients, in between two sessions, and going, great, I've got a piece of paper now that says I have a business. I actually registered the business as a sole trader, so I didn't have to have a name.
Simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really easy. Like, that honestly is the most easiest part of running a business. But I just registered as, at that time, my maiden name was Ballum. So I just said Emily Ballum Company. Like, I didn't actually even need my business name, because then I just then made that, and that was then the trading as. So I remember doing little things like that in that contractor position, because essentially you only get paid for when you're seeing clients. So then the time outside of that is your own. And so that was then how I sort of transitioned into business, was through that contractor model. You have a different story, don't you?
Well, no, mine's kind of actually similar. So I started out as a contractor in a private practice, and then I went into employee for that business. The contractor position in that business was pretty rubbish, because I was having to work 60 hours a week to be available all the time, but wasn't getting paid in between clients.
Is that why you were available 60 hours, but you weren't working 60 hours?
Yeah, because I needed to earn the money. So, and this is a really common, common sort of setup with contractors. You've essentially got to build your list, and that's what I had to do. And then I went into being an employee for that business, and built that up. And then I started Kids Heart Pilates on the side. So I was doing 3 days and 2 days. And then I started as a sole trader in a practice that I currently now own, Northside Allied Health, which it wasn't called that at the time. And so I was kind of doing a lot of different arrangements, and I've done a lot of different things. And I think, that's how I've explored how to scale. Kids Heart Pilates, I've had license owners, that own territories, through to contractors, through to now employees. And in Northside Allied Health, we've got a completely different setup. So it's like I think there's benefits of both. My personal journey, I loved being a sole trader and coming in and working my butt off and earning really good money. So I went from being an employee to a sole trader, and I was like, right, I'm here to work. Like, I'm going to see the clients. If a client rang and said, I've got a doctor's appointment, I'd be like, oh, well, I've got a cancellation later. I can come and, I can see you then. I'd go and do home visits if they, their pain was too much and they didn't want to get in the car. So I made a lot of money as a sole trader. And I think, that was a really, really good banking and accounting and BAS and
because you have to do that yourself as a sole trader.
Yes.
You have to do.
Yep.
The company will pay you your split.
Yep.
And then you have to do your own tax.
Yep.
Your own super.
Put your GST and your tax aside because we have to do GST. So all of that I learnt through that, and I really loved that model. And then when I went on to buy the business, I continued that model, and I've had over the 10 years, I've had both. I've tried all different models. Like I say, I've done the licenses, I've done the sole traders, I've done the employees. And what I didn't like about the employees was that I felt like I had to micromanage and say, you need to see this many clients. You need to be spending your time doing this. There was a real push for seeing clients and dictating how many hours someone's working and how much they're going to be paid. Because it's tough for a business, I think, employees as well. Like you've got to cover your basis in terms of revenue and time. And I didn't like that. And I think, I've had my personal experience that of burning out and having a stroke and, all of that. So I'm quite sensitive around dictating how much someone works and what work-life balance they have. So that's why different setups work in different scenarios for different people at different stages of their life. And I think it's important to know the ins and outs of it. But yeah, there's no kind of one way.
When you were a contractor, then you did work like crazy.
I did, yeah.
To earn a lot of money.
Yeah, because I'm a hustler. But not everyone.
Because that's the thing. If as a contractor, like we said before, if you're not actually seeing the client, because that's obviously how you're getting paid, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
So you don't, as a contractor, you don't get paid unless you have an agreement with the workplace. You generally don't get an allowance for notes if you're doing them out of that time.
But how much do you get as an employee as well? Because that's managed really. I feel like that's managed quite a lot. You're not going to let them do notes for 4 hours a day.
Well, it's about finding that balance.
Yes.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah. And I think that applies for both, right?
Yeah. But yeah, it's looking at what you, like as an employee, you get paid to do note, like you would get time for that.
Yeah.
Well, you should be. If you're not, you should be.
Yeah.
As a contractor, then you don't get paid for that. So you do, I feel like maybe as a contractor, you do become a bit of a ninja because you have to be efficient. Otherwise you're not getting paid.
I tell you, I do my notes in every session. I think it's actually really powerful to do your notes in the session because you're looking at the previous notes and going, what did we do last time? I leave myself little messages from the previous session, and I can bring that up. I can continue the conversation that we're having. I feel like it's been really good for rapport. I think it's been really good for progress. And I do not want to sit up at night doing notes.
Who does?
Whether I'm an employee.
That's not a good work-life balance. You need to learn to manage your time.
Exactly. So that's something that I train with both employees and my sole traders is to to manage your time. And I think that goes regardless of
doesn't matter
what you're doing.
Whatever you're working
I think, if you're working as a sole trader or a contractor or an independent, there's obviously, like what I said, making yourself available is, with a lack of a better word, a trap at the start because that can set up some poor boundaries and habits around your time. But I think you have freedom. So you can say, I'm going to Europe for 3 weeks and you can't do anything about it.
You don't get paid for those 3 weeks. So you have to make sure you have savings.
Yeah.
Because you don't get holiday leave.
But you get paid more. So
you get paid more. So it does even out. As long as you've worked the hours to see the clients to get paid, you then can budget and know that you've got savings there. As long as that's what you would do.
Yeah.
If you were to go on holidays.
Yeah.
Or you're sick, so you don't get paid if you're sick.
No, that's right.
Which you've got to be really careful because as healthcare professionals, you're dealing with people who are sick, and particularly if you're a new grad, you've never experienced or been exposed to that many germs in your life if you're working with pediatrics. It is insane.
Yeah.
So you've got to there's definitely proactive measures you can take to make sure that you're healthy and you stay on top of your health.
And that goes both ways, doesn't it? Employee or sole trader independent, because if you're an employee, you're not going to have sick leave at the start. And that's when you're going to get sick.
Yeah,
so I think, that's something to be mindful of, and probably a whole nother episode in terms of managing our health.
I mean, it's also you're just managing yourself so you don't burn out as well.
Yes.
And that's a part of managing your health and not getting sick.
Yes, exactly.
You can't avoid getting sick, obviously, but there's lots of proactive measures you can take, which you're just generally not used to taking because you've never been exposed to that many germs.
Yeah.
Tell you what, though, after you've had your first year, you're immune to anything. I still feel like I have a great immunity.
Well, pair that with having kids and then you're basically invincible, unless you work yourself into the ground, which happens occasionally. But I think, like I was saying, you get that freedom. So you could have the freedom to, you can have this with an employee as well, because you could be working part-time, but you could be starting your thing on the side, like you were saying, setting up your business in between clients, using your time as you wish to use your time for your own interests. And you can work in other practices or in other locations with respect to who you're working with, and explore different clients. You might explore different positions from dealing with different
workplaces or populations.
Well, while there's freedom, I guess, in that contract setup or sole trader or independent business or whatever agreement there is, employees is offers a whole lot of other benefits. I have just transitioned Kids Heart Pilates from being a licensed business in Brisbane and having territories through to having employees, and that's because I'm really passionate about the service that I'm creating, the knowledge that I've accumulated over the years, and I want to be able to provide a consistent service and really hone in on I want to have a bit more control there. And I also want to educate and develop these people that are coming into that business, which is not what you do so much with independent contractors, sole traders, businesses that you engage. And you can talk way more about this because you've had an employee business for longer than I have. But, I'm really developing them both personally and professionally and working on that culture so that we're strengthening our brand, because I'm really passionate about that. But you have had employees, like that's always been your structure.
And that's sort of been my personal conviction. Obviously, that doesn't mean it's, we're saying there are positives and negatives to contractors and to employees. Like we've both experienced both to some extent.
Yeah.
I think obviously it starts with your values and what aligns for your life and the season of your life. Like just before I dive into employees, like when you were working, available those 60 hours, that would not be realistic now with two boys.
And I was making like $50,000. It was.
I think like the big point is that you can have different models, but it's got to come down to thinking about yourself, what your values are and what aligns for what season you're in your life and what you want out of life in that season.
Yeah. And where you see yourself going.
That's it.
Career progression.
Yes. And so when I say values, what I mean by that is what is important to you. Most people hopefully would be saying yes to these questions, but when you're a new grad, you have to realize that yes, you do have a graduation certificate, but you still don't know. You only know a little bit compared to the whole big bit that you still don't know. And so generally, if you're a contractor, you're not getting paid. Sometimes you probably would get paid for mentoring. It's a bit more fluid, but it's not as much. You're not compensated for that time that you need to learn and grow.
No, you're not.
So as a new grad, you need to spend countless hours investing back into yourself to invest into your clients and your workplace. And so as a new grad, there's so many different areas. You can obviously focus on all of your clinical skills with your clients, all the different types of disabilities and delays and disorders. And, with speech therapy, there's stuttering, speech sounds, language, feeding, literacy. There's so many areas just in that. That would be the same with you with all the different conditions.
Yes.
So you've got your clinical skills, but then you also need to learn how to write a report, how to write progress notes and do them efficiently, like you're saying in the session. And that is all those little things, how to write NDIS letters, how to make a phone call, how to hand over homework to parents, how to talk to educators, they are all a lot of skills that make up the majority of your job, and you need to take a lot of time to hone those skills.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was, again, coming back to the value of that is what is going to make an amazing speech pathologist, is if they have that clinical understanding. They also understand that other side of their role, which is all the paperwork. And everyone always goes, paperwork. But I'm like, actually, if you know how to master your time and you know how to master paperwork, it's not that, paperwork, because it shouldn't be like that. If you have elements of the job like that I don't even know how many years you've been working for. If you're still at 10 years going, paperwork, you need to actually work on the personal development skill of managing time. What are you doing with yourself? Because you can actually have a really lovely balance there when you master those skills. And that's what I experienced for myself. I became very efficient with paperwork to be effective with people. So sometimes we then think we've got to be efficient with people and relationships in our clients, but we actually need to have those meaningful relationships, and they're effective relationships. So we're not trying to rush people out the door. We're trying to give them that quality time. So that's why it's effectiveness with people, efficiency with paperwork, and making sure you're just doing things, in an ordered way that works for you. Everyone has their own order, but you're able to get those skills under your belt. So that's what those 3 to 4 years, it can even take 5 years, look like as a new graduate. And so the amount of time that goes into that, if you're not paid for that time or focusing on that time, that's really hard because you do want to be a great clinician as well. But I feel like if you do get those things under your belt, you then have the opportunity to go and be a contractor because you've then a master of time, which is time as a contractor is important. So then you can make and generate income.
Yeah.
So with the employees, it's like you were sort of saying, you can achieve a standard of quality rather than just smashing through numbers. Yeah. And sometimes for me, actually in my first position, I was an employee, but then we did have a bonus on top of that. Yeah. And so at that time I was seeing 30-minute clients. That was my entire caseload. So I had, I think maybe a bonus of if I saw over 58 to 60 clients a week, every client over that, I would then get 50-50. Yeah. And so I actually was earning a lot more money in that job. All of the speeches that are listening as new grads are going to freak out going, you were seeing that many children. But yes, that was what was expected. But I also did thrive in that position and I liked it. Everyone's got different capacities. Yes. I understand that when you're hearing this information. Yes. But then I was working, my motivation to see those extra clients was a number and a financial motivation. And because I don't know, this is a general statement, but being a health professional, I'm not motivated as much by money. At that time, I wasn't. Yeah. I was like, I've got enough for myself. I'm single. I was renting or either living at home at that time. Yeah. And, I just had a car. I didn't have a mortgage or anything like that.
Stage, doesn't it? Because when I was working independently and hustling and seeing loads of clients, I was saving up to buy a unit. So, and I wanted to go overseas. So I went overseas and bought a unit within 6 months of each other.
Yeah, I did not do that.
And a new car.
I did not do that. I never had that drive. I really valued that lifestyle and that social lifestyle. Yeah. I think because at uni, it was just very structured, with what you have to do. I just loved working and leaving work at work and then going and having my life and exploring and traveling. I did so much traveling. Yeah. But, I liked that became a monetary thing for me, seeing those extra clients, and that burnt me out. That tipped me over. And so when I then left that job and went to a government job, everyone was saying, you're crazy, you're going to get underpaid. And I said, it's not worth it. Yeah. Seeing those extra clients and getting those bonuses, which then the bonus was then taxed. So I lost half of the bonus and I was like, I didn't even get, I only saw half of that money and I burnt myself out, worked so much, it wasn't worth it. Yeah. But what it did for me was it flipped my mindset to be about money rather than the child. Yeah. So I'm not saying that will happen with everyone, but that did happen for me and I didn't like that.
That comes back to the values, right? Yeah. The values, life stage, there's so many sort of factors that need to be considered and I don't think there's one way that's right. No. I love what I've set up with Kids Heart Pilates at the moment and I'm excited to how that will allow me to scale and progress the careers of these new employees that have come on board, because I need some leaders in my business to help me scale that business. And I love my Northside Allied Health business, which engages people independently, so sole traders and businesses. And we serve as a management company. And I love that because that gives them the freedom to earn cash that they want to, work how they want to, do what they want, service their clients how they want, develop different group programs. It's all on them, and I just kind of facilitate, support, mentor. And I really like that as well. And I think from an owner's perspective, there's benefits of both and risks of both, obviously. And then as professionals, I think different positions are going to align to different values and different life stages, and that's what people need to consider. With Kids Heart Pilates, I really needed to go into an employee structure and provide a car, because we're doing, like I was telling you, 12 hours of travel each week in the car.
A lot.
So I can't expect to be able to hold people in a position if I'm not paying for that time. So and providing a car. So that's what I've decided.
That's the benefit of being an employee then.
Yeah.
And so that...
And being protected by the award.
Yes, that's a really good point, because I think then that can help you determine, if you're wondering, what would work for you or where to go. It's looking at what the owners, the business owners' values are, what their service delivery is. So if you're a mobile clinic, if you're in-house, like what's required of you practically, and if that aligns with you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what you probably should be doing regardless of contractor versus employees, but you need to be looking at the values of the company. And when we're talking about values, we're talking about what is important to them. So do they actually even articulate that clearly, or is it not? And sometimes it's important that values are articulated clearly, because otherwise then not bad habits, but things can happen in a workplace where people start taking work home, where people are just doing crazy hours and there's no work-life balance.
And that's where mentoring needs to come in. So you need to, I love mentoring, I love leading, I love connecting with people. So, and I express that in my different arrangement at Northside. I talk to them about why I have structured my business in the way that it is, in being a management company, similar to like a GP practice. I talk about the values and I talk about my role in their development. And I think that sets the tone. And so it's worked really well. And then in Kids Heart Pilates, we've had that flip, and I talk about that as well. So I think if you're not getting that information as to why they're in that structure, maybe asking some questions around why it's that structure, to understand what has led them to lead in this way, maybe how they see that will work as a benefit for the business and for them. And, is the business thinking about them as a provider as well as, the big picture, I guess.
And that comes back to the value of transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's both high on both of our lists.
Yeah.
People, we say, come and speak to us, come and talk to us. Having that transparency there, sometimes it's better to receive an answer you don't like rather than to not know the answer at all and just keep wondering.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point. Like, just go and approach your employer, go and approach your senior or your boss or whoever's making those decisions, and ask them and talk to them.
Yeah.
You don't need to be going in threatening things, or you don't need to be going in not advocating for yourself, but it's having that balance of conversation. You shouldn't ever be scared or worried. And if you are scared or worried, it's probably not the best workplace for you, because your boss should be emitting, those vibes of
open door,
communication. You should be comfortable to be yourself, and you should be comfortable to bring what you can to the team. And so that is having conversations with them that are open. And it's not being afraid of, if you might not hear something you like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Not everything is going to be right for everyone.
Yeah.
It's being okay with sorting through things.
Yeah.
Or going, I need to make a decision. Maybe this isn't the right workplace for me, but having clarity about making that decision and not just going, I'm going to jump ship. No one knows why, and leave badly. You want to always try and have that clear transparency, which is important to us. But I think maybe like you were saying, in your career, knowing where you want to go.
Yeah.
it's okay if you want to be an employee for your career. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay then if you want to have your own business.
Yeah.
I mean, Speech Pathology Australia recommends that no speechies open their own business until you've got 5 years under your belt.
Yeah.
You and I both have 5 years.
Yeah.
And we would say 5 years because it takes 5 years to learn how to master yourself as a professional clinically, and all those other side things. Plus then you then put the business into it. Like I was saying, it's like taking payments, doing invoices.
Yeah.
If you're not proficient as a clinician, you can't add those extra things on. You'll just have a breakdown.
Yeah.
So they say 5 years is a good sort of trajectory.
Yeah.
And so if you know that, maybe
minimum, right?
Yeah, minimum.
Yeah.
Maybe being a contractor might suit you around that time because, like,
If
for
that's
me,
what
it
you
helped
wanna
me
do.
discern to go into my own business. And like you said, it showed you all the different types of skills that you need and things like that. So, you know, if you sort of are wanting that mentoring early on, that employee might be good, but then you can move into contractor.
Yeah.
Then maybe move to your own business. That worked for both of us.
Absolutely, because I think you can, you know, if you're aligning with someone that has your values, you can see how it works. You've got the career progression, I think, in an employee environment where you can climb the ladder within that business. And it's not to say that it's not there as an independent, because it's just a different career progression, isn't it? But I think that you can then go, okay, well, how, like if you want your own business, you can go, well, how would I make my business different? Or what would I do the same? And, you know, what can I take from my experience here? And it's all experience. And I think there's no one way. There's definitely no one way. There's lots of different options. You know, I've talked about licensing, sole traders, independent businesses, contractors, employees. There's lots of different scenarios in which we can work. And then you've got your private practice versus your government.
You've got your settings as well, which are different. And I guess, I don't know what it's like for EPs, but generally it's private practice. Well, it's you can work in private practice. You can work in a hospital setting or community health setting, or even schools. They're better in Queensland, speeches in schools, but not. And I think Melbourne even school speeches don't really. We have to be contracted to go into a school, but there's no speeches employed by the school.
Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, in Queensland.
Yes. So hopefully New South Wales is moving towards that. That would be the best for our children.
That's crazy. I can't believe that.
Yes. But I think, in the speechy world, private practice traditionally has been given a bad rap. And sometimes even at uni these days, they're even saying, be wary, be wary. I think there's nothing wrong with having your wits about you and doing investigation, but that doesn't mean, but you don't just do that with private practice. If you're going to have your wits about you, do that when you go for any job.
Yes.
But private practice these days, like we're speaking about, if it's that employee model, there are a lot of benefits to it these days. And at Speak About, we have worked really hard. Like I had some very negative experiences in private practice. And so the reason why I started my private practice Speak About was because I want to do things differently.
Yeah.
And often there is a misconception that in private practice, the owner is there to take all the money and to make you be a slave driver.
Why do people think that?
It's really common. But even if you're a private practice owner listening to this, I am proof, Speak About is proof that we can have happy employees, good financials, good clinics, and we're not having to slave speechies to work and to see lots of clients. Yes, you can't sit around seeing 2 clients a day.
No.
But you couldn't even do that in contractors.
There's going to be an expectation.
There is, yes. You do have to see children, but if you're not wanting to see children, why did you become a speechy in the first place? Because you want to help children.
The more children you work with, the more experience that you have. And that just, evolves and evolves.
Yes. And that is one of the reasons, I look back and I think, yes, what I was doing was crazy as a new graduate.
Yeah.
Doing, probably even 15 sessions, 30-minute sessions a day.
Yeah.
And even when I opened my business, because I had the long-term vision of building the finances up to it, bring employees on, I was doing 17 children a day.
Yeah.
Half hours.
And that's a whole nother episode, scaling your business.
My capacity was okay.
Reinvesting
at that time. But, it's, you do have to work for your skills. Like you want to help children. That's what you need to do, but you shouldn't be scared about private practice. Really what you need to do practically is to research, do thorough interviews, make sure you speak to the owners of the business.
Yeah.
But I also then get our people in jobs to go and speak to the team. I'm like, don't take my word for it. If someone is not letting you speak to the team and keeping it separate, that might be a red flag. But private practice in itself is not a red flag from the start. And it can actually bring you, like the private practices that I talk to and endorse and speak to, there's a lot of really great owners out there that are really trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And that looks like giving loads of mentoring.
Yeah.
Top class mentoring.
Yeah.
Giving loads of different accommodations and thinking about how we can make it better for the employee. It's not a one size fits all.
Yes.
I speak about it's not a one size fits all, you know, and then it's constantly investing. Like I speak about, we do retreats.
Yes.
We focus on personal development. There is time for that in the workplace and those values.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So it's, you know, don't be wary of private practice.
Yeah.
Really look up what makes a private practice good.
Yeah.
And if you hear people saying to you, don't go into private practice, you know, they're out to get you or whatever, realign your thinking and your talking with that.
Well, do your research yourself.
To change that.
Because yes, everyone's going to have a negative, like everyone has different experiences. So there's always going to be someone that hasn't liked the scenario, like that they haven't had a good experience.
Yeah.
But does it mean that everyone does that?
No. But that's also the same with government jobs. Like people told me, don't be wary of government jobs. But then when I went into my government job, I loved my team. I was a proficient clinician already when I went there, but going there as a new grad might have been hard. There wasn't the same level of mentoring at that time. There was a lot more people to deal with, and there wasn't the same level of quality or standard because it was a government job. Yeah. And that's, again, I loved that job. I absolutely loved it. And I think if I wasn't pushed, I probably would still be there.
Yeah.
It wasn't a maternity position, I would have stayed there.
Yeah, right.
But you've also got to be wary of all jobs, not just private practice.
Yeah, that's right.
Your
due diligence.
I can never say that when I'm speaking.
Due diligence.
Do your research with whatever role you're going into.
Yeah. And what prac do you have to do as a speechie? Because that's a really good way to experience different setups. And like we get a lot of students at Northside and they'll come on in an agreement with us once they're graduated because they've been there, they've spoken to the team. Like when you were just saying, you know, I get them to go and speak to the team. That's like when I'm engaging a practitioner in Northside, I'm the last person to have I'm the last conversation because they've spent however many weeks doing their prac with the team, experiencing it, and they love it. So I think that's a really good opportunity as well. Like being mindful, go, okay, what sort of position do I want? Am I tossing up between private practice and government? Can I do prac in each?
Yeah, that's a really great point. Like we have allied health assistants, or we have admin.
Yeah.
All of our casual admins and allied health assistants have now come on to work with us, but they got a really good picture of the workplace. And I would prefer that. I'm like, I want you to come into my workplace happy to be here.
Yeah.
I want you to know exactly what you're getting into. Yes. Let me show you the Power Diary, which is our practice management software. Let me show you the OneDrive. We want you to know. We don't want to have anything hidden.
No surprises.
If you're hiding something, why are you hiding something? That's a red flag.
Yeah.
If you've got nothing to hide, you're obviously going to get a really good workplace. Or if issues come up, you're able to overcome those and talk through those. Yeah. Which is what you want. You're at work 5 days a week.
Yeah.
You need to be able to do that.
With Kids Art Pilates, I send them out to classes so they can see it before, you know, we've finished the interview process. That's part of our interview process. Yeah. Go out and have a look and see what it's like because it's not for everyone and that's okay. Yeah. I don't want people that it's not for.
Exactly, because that's not doing them any favours.
No.
And I think that's probably a part of the interview process is that you do, you know, observations. So we do observations with speechies in sessions.
Yeah.
You speak to the team. They come in on a lunch break and talk to them. They can go around. They sit with the admin. They speak to us. We have a couple of proper sessions.
Yeah.
I actually would be wary if you went to a job interview and you got called an hour later and offered the position. All you did was speak to the owner.
Yeah, but I've done that before.
I know. I've done it too.
Really, really good. And I'm like, right, I'm going to get that person.
I've done it too. And it was more because I didn't know how to interview. Yeah. That's a whole other kettle of fish when you're learning. But also you think that's the norm. That's what's supposed to be doing. But really, if you think about it, that person should be saying to you, yes, I would love to accept, can I watch a class?
Yeah.
You know, even if you're sure, they need to be sure. It's a two-way relationship.
That's right. And I think that's sometimes what we miss. And I think it's like creating a bit of a wish list in terms of doing your due diligence is important. So, you know, can I shadow another practitioner? Can I, you know, what are your values? Can you tell me more about, you know, the structure of your business and why it's got to this place? You know, asking some questions, because I actually think as a business owner, when someone's asking me questions, or even getting on the website and finding out as much as you can and saying, you know, I found out this and this on the website, I'd just like to know a little bit more about that. That to me just, you know, is amazing, because I'm like, well, they're actually, you know, want to make sure this is right for them. So when we do make a decision, we're making a decision that's been researched and well thought out.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's just being intentional, isn't it?
Yeah.
And asking the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only other thing which I've found with my employees, which is an important thing to think about, is your season in life.
Yeah.
But what you want to achieve. Sometimes you might need stability if you're trying to buy a home.
Yeah.
Like, you know, home loan and pay
3
slips.
years of BAS statements.
Because if you're a sole trader or
3
contractor,
years.
it's 3 years of pay slips to buy your own house. So that's a fairly long journey.
Yeah.
If you're an employee, you know, you do have your pay slips that are regular, and you sort of
it's more security.
It's more secure, so that can actually help you. So if you're looking at like that, it's making sure that your personal life is aligned with your professional life and what you're trying to do.
Being strategic around that.
Yeah, because those are really important things that most new grads come in and they're like, I want to buy a car, I want to buy a house, I do want to travel. What else would they be doing? What else? We were traveling, buying houses, a car.
You do.
Yeah, professional development.
Yeah.
And personal development. It's like, you know, looking at that and if it aligns. And I think then you can kind of come to a decision yourself as what would be better for me in this stage of life with my experience, what I'm wanting out of a role and what I'm wanting for my career as well. And that also then comes into whether you want part-time work or full-time work.
Yeah. If you make it work for you, it will work for the business, because you'll, you know, be bringing your best self and you'll be there for a longer time.
You have that work-life balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we hope that this discussion has been helpful. If you do have questions, again, just send us a DM on our profiles. Make sure you're following Lizzie. What's your Instagram handle?
Lizzie Dawson _
And I'm Emily Mackey Speechy. And then if you do want to experience a great workplace or what that looks like, hit us up if you're in our local areas. We'd love to meet you and talk to you if you're at uni and looking at going into work, because we would love to show you what a good workplace looks like.